I hope more people come around to really talking about the heart of Jewish joy and the emotion of giving people reasons to feel confident and proud in being Jewish. That is all I am doing. I am helping people become confident in their own Jewish identity. And that is something that is really, really, really needed right now.
This is The Book of Life, a show about Jewish kidlit mostly. I'm Heidi Rabinowitz. Back in July 2025, I did a brief interview with Jean Meltzer so she could tell you about Jewish JoyCon, an exciting event coming to Fort Lauderdale, Florida in March 2026. But I promised you a longer interview later, and here it is. Jean talks about her writing, her Jewish Joy book club and subscription box, more about the con, and about her newest book, The 8 Heartbreaks of Hanukkah. I also want to let you know that I will be celebrating Jewish Book Month by participating in the Jewish Book Council's Share Your Shelf, Share Your Story project. I will post a photo on social media each day of Jewish Book Month, November 13th through December 13th, 2025, showing a Jewish book from my personal collection with a comment about why the book is special to me. I would love to see your comments about which Jewish books are special to you. For show notes, a transcript, and links to more about Jean's work, subscribe to my newsletter at bookoflifepodcast.substack.com or visit the full website at bookoflifepodcast.com. Jean, we spoke briefly in the summer about your amazing project, Jewish JoyCon, and we're going to get into that some more today. But I also want to talk about your romance novels. So my first question is, were you a big romance reader before you became a writer?
No, I actually did not pick up my first romance novel until I was 38 years old.
Really?
Yeah, this is sort of part of my journey, my story, but I grew up in a Jewish home. We had a Jewish library, so we literally had all the Holocaust books, photography books, Roman Vishniak, philosophers like Heschel, Mordecai Kaplan, but there was never in that library a romance novel. So it wasn't until I was actually 38, I was in a point where my chronic illness had sort of left me very disabled and basically homebound, bedbound for like 2 years. And life was really, really dark for me that time. And part of my survival method was focusing on my joy. So one night I'm going through Kindle Unlimited and I see this free book called Blood Bond by Helen Hart, who's a very big romance author. I didn't know any of this, but it was about vampires. And I was like, I really loved Interview with the Vampire. Like, I haven't read a sparkly vampire romance in a really long time. On page 2, the author used a very scandalous word for male parts. I'm trying to be very gentle here.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know what this is, but I want more. And I am not kidding you. It was a novella, but it was like the first one was free, and then every one was $3.99. There was like 10 of them. I spent like $50 in one night. I was invested in the story. I loved it. And I became a romance reader. Helen Hart was my gateway drug with these vampire stories. And from there, I started reading romance and I started devouring it. It was exactly what I needed at a moment in my life. But it wouldn't be till 2 years later that I would think about penning a Jewish romance for myself.
Okay, well, that leads perfectly to my next question, which is, how did you become the queen of Jewish romance?
There were a good handful of Jewish authors who were doing romance, but we didn't really have this thing called Jewish romance where the narrative would be heavily Jewish. 2020 was an interesting time in the romance novel world because what was happening was this push for diversity. So people wanted more stories of disabled people and LGBTQIA plus people and Jewish people. And so there was a real big push for diverse romance and own voices, meaning people who had lived experience in this. Romance really pushed that. I had not thought about writing a Jewish romance until I had an experience with my 7-year-old niece We were, of course, watching a Christmas movie, and she was sitting on my lap, and she looked up at me with her big, beautiful blue eyes, and she said, "Aunt Jeannie, you have a big nose, and big noses are ugly."
Ay.
Right. My heart broke because one, I love my nose. I look in the mirror, I see 6,000 years of Jewish history like staring back at me. I see my mama-laws and my grandma-laws and everybody. I see my history. But really what I couldn't imagine was at 7 years old, despite going to Jewish day school, despite having 3 aunties who have never bemoaned the size of our noses, despite being surrounded by Jewish culture, she had somehow internalized this message that there was something wrong with the way and though I did not want to break it to her, she would eventually look. Like, sorry, kid, this nose is, it's coming. So, but I realized she was growing up with a story of what Jewish womanhood looked like. It was the same story I had grown up with. And that story said that Jews were not the heroes of our own narratives. We were either victims needing to be saved, or we were the comic relief, the side character, the chubby girl with frizzy hair and glasses, but like never someone deserving of their own happy ending. I decided I was going to sit down and I was going to pen a Jewish romance novel for her, where the Jewish women never bemoaned the size of their nose, where the Jewish men were really attractive and sexy. I wanted to give her the story that I never had growing up. And that first book became The Matzo Ball. But it literally stemmed out of this beautiful moment in time where the publishing industry was open to these types of stories, actively looking for them, where my ability to write these stories had finally hit that level, like, oh, I know what I'm doing now. And it was just this amazing timing, luck, talent, meeting that moment where you figure out how to plot. It turned into a beautiful, beautiful thing that has affected hundreds of thousands of people now.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And so now you've written 5 Jewish rom-coms.
Yeah.
Yes. And you've sparked the creation of a genre.
Yeah, I was very aware of the fact that if the matzo ball was not successful, it would mean that other people behind me would not get book deals. I remember crying to my agent. I felt a tremendous amount of responsibility to really fight, not just for myself, but for the people who would come after me. And people think of it as like Jewish romance, it's fluffy, it's not the serious stuff. But the truth is, what we are doing is sort of revolutionary. We're kind of a disruptor. It scares a lot of people. Jewish romance authors, we get a lot of flack, but it's so important and it's become the basis of everything I do. I feel like fighting for Jewish romance is like fighting for Jewish joy. These stories are so important to how the next generation of Jews, or even this current generation reading it, will see themselves going forward. And we deserve to have stories where we are the heroes of our own narrative.
Now, you were talking about the perfect moment that publishing was very welcoming to diverse stories in 2020. And although publishing is still somewhat welcoming to diverse stories, there's a few different factors. There's the pushback against diversity.
Yes.
From political forces. And then there's the pushback against Jewish content in publishing. So has that affected this infant genre?
Absolutely. I think that's why I'm fighting so hard. It's not just about me. It's not just about my books. If you want to know the truth, I spend a lot of time meeting new authors, trying to uplift them, trying to help them. The amount of Jewish authors I have sat with who have cried on Zoom because they don't know if what they're experiencing is just publishing or anti-Semitism. But there has absolutely been a shift in terms of contracts, in terms of support across the spectrum. We are going through a lot. And this is why my messaging is fight for Jewish joy, whether it's my book or someone else's. Fight to make sure that we are more than Holocaust fiction. And I always say, most Holocaust fiction isn't necessarily written for the Jewish community, but Jewish romance is written for the Jewish community first. And that's a really important distinction.
We've talked about the publishing of your books and of Jewish romance, but I want to get into the actual content of your books. So I noticed that in each of your novels, the characters learn to love themselves better as well as falling in love with another person. So can you talk about that?
Sure, yeah. I mean, I think that just speaks to who I am as a person. There are like heavy women's fiction elements in my books because I am a trained screenwriter, trained classical writer. So I'm very familiar with the hero's journey and the idea that a character should move through the stages of this journey with tests and challenges that leads them to a place where they can change for the better. Very few of us are perfect. I think for my characters, that's who we are, right? They have chronic illness, they have disabilities, they work too much, don't devote enough time to their families, they are afraid of falling in love, they've been hurt before. You know, we're not just one drama in our life, we're usually a few. So why can't characters have the same thing?
You touched upon this. Each of your heroines has a different kind of chronic illness or trauma that they're dealing with, which I think is unusual in romance. There's chronic fatigue, interstitial cystitis, migraines, anxiety, grief, childhood abuse, even the loss of a baby. So can you expand on the decision to include these difficult themes in books that are also meant to be fun and lighthearted?
So Heidi, when I sat down to write The Matzo Ball, I really knew it was a good book, but I never thought it was going to get published. And I'll tell you why. It was not just super Jewish. And I mean like Talmud jokes, like rabbinical school jokes. Like if you knew what a goring ox is from the Talmud, if you're mu'ad or not, like these are jokes in The Matzo Ball. So I was like, this thing is never getting published. This is way too insider Jewy. And then on top of that, I put in this chronic illness. And it was a not really well understood chronic illness, which is myalgic encephalomyelitis, otherwise known as chronic fatigue syndrome, the absolute worst moniker for what my disease is, probably in the history of disease names. So I wrote that book. I filled it with everything I love, beautiful fantasy, wish fulfillment. And lo and behold, it got agented in 2 days, sold with 4 people offering.
Wow.
Within 4 weeks, it was like the book that took off. And then it had multiple international deals and movie deal and like everything. And even then, I still didn't really know the impact it would have until it was published. And suddenly, the amount of emails I got, emails of people saying things like, I am going to use a wheelchair because it's better for me. People driving 6 hours to come meet me at a book signing and not even able to talk. And I realized that I had written this book, The Matzo Ball, for me and my niece, but countless people needed that book. I think one of my strengths in life, probably because I've been invisible for like decades, is that I see spaces where things are forgotten, where people are forgotten. I have been that person myself. So I really feel this drive, this commitment to give voice to the voiceless and to make sure that people who are not seen are seen. I also love a good challenge. I don't like to do things that I feel like have been done before. Yeah, I was like, I want to do a romance book about sexual dysfunction. Like who does that? Who does that? I don't know. That goes against every romance rule. But I was like, I'm going to do that. And that book got a Kirkus star, and it was also a Booklist star. Top 10 romances of 2023.
Kissing Kosher?
That was Kissing Kosher, the sexual dysfunction book with medical marijuana in it. Again, challenging topics based on my own weird life experiences. Same thing with anxiety. Actually, anxiety was easy for me to write about because my mom's a psychologist and anxiety was always part of my life. But I know it's really hard for a lot of people to talk about their anxiety. So I was like, I'm going to talk about it, no problem. I wanted to write a book about anti-Semitism. That was Magical Meet Cute. It was in line edits at the final stage when October 7th happened, and it was published within a year of October 7th. So that was like very timely, but it was always about taking on these topics in romance and maybe in like a contemporary book world that hasn't really been talked about in these sort of spaces or formats or stories.
And I just wanted to make sure to name that the anxiety book was
Mr. Perfect on Paper, which is a beautiful, it's really based on the love story of me and my husband who converted.
Aw.
Yes, it's kind of a story about loving your faith and what you do when you also fall in love with someone who's outside your faith. It's my husband's favorite book, obviously, but I'm really very proud of that story.
Well, something else that's special to me about Mr. Perfect on Paper is that it's the only novel I've ever read where the protagonist shares my last name, Rabinowitz. So that was really fun for me.
I love that.
How did you choose that name?
Dara Rabinowitz? I don't know. I like the name.
Well, I got a big kick out of that.
Thank you.
So as you mentioned, your books can be pretty educational, not only about chronic illness, but about things like baking and medical cannabis and matchmaking and
Jewish stuff.
and Jewish stuff and Jew witchery. So I wanted to ask you if you could tell about some of the different topics of research that you've had to do in order to write your books, and if you can, share some interesting tidbit you learned in your research that maybe didn't make it into the books.
Yes. So first off, you can take the girl out of rabbinical school, but you cannot take the rabbinical school nerd out of the girl. I love text. I am truly in love with text. Sepharia is like the greatest thing that ever existed. If you are listening out there, Sepharia people, like, thank you for everything you do. So I love the research phase and I love learning. And so when I put things into my books, it's not to like educate people. It's just like, isn't this cool? And also, a lot of my readers aren't Jewish, but they love learning about Judaism. Something I've learned as a Jewish romance author in the romance world and space in general is that we have a different worldview. And sometimes you just need to explain the worldview or people don't quite get it. So for example, Magical Me Cute, I did tons of research on the real history of Jewish magic and Jewish women healers and Jewish women in the temple, demonology, and rules for where you should buy a house or build a house. They really did give good advice within there. Like they would talk about how to keep the demons off your hands. You should wash your hands and wash your face because the demons are always trying to get in your nostrils and your mouth and cause illness. And that's why you shouldn't touch a baby like that. They were like, don't take your dirty hands and put them in your mouth and touch your nose and then touch the newborn baby. You must wash before eating. You must wash when you wake up. Maybe they thought it was demons, but they were really quite smart, our past people. There's so much cool stuff that I don't have enough time to put into my books. I would love to spend more time talking about Jewish sexuality, the appearance of Jews without gender in various texts. And there's all sorts of beautiful Kabbalistic things that I just can't fit in. But I try to sprinkle the themes through all of my stories.
So your new novel is The Eight Heartbreaks of Hanukkah. It's your second Hanukkah book. Matzo Ball was also a Hanukkah book.
Yeah, they made me wait to the fifth one, believe it or not. I was like, I want to do another Hanukkah, and they made me wait.
Oh, that's interesting.
God bless them for it, because I think they wanted me to be not just a holiday romance writer, and I really appreciate that. And Matzo Ball was such a big, splashy book. They really wanted to give it time. It takes time for readers to find books and to get to the books and all that stuff. So it was 5 years before I was allowed to do it.
Before you were allowed. That's very funny.
Yeah.
So, spoiler alert, The Eight Heartbreaks of Hanukkah is based on A Christmas Carol.
Yes.
And it's funny, as we record this episode for the 20th anniversary of the Book of Life podcast, in the very first episode, in December 2005, I interviewed Eric Kimmel about his classic picture book, Herschel and the Hanukkah Goblins.
So good.
And he said, yeah, I know, it's so good.
It's so good.
And he said he was inspired by A Christmas Carol to create a holiday story that, like A Christmas Carol, wasn't very religious and was mildly spooky.
I love that.
I know, right? So besides just the fun parallel that we're bookending 20 years with Jewish books inspired by A Christmas Carol, it's also making me think about how our minority culture of Judaism is both self-contained and interacts with the wider world. And I feel like in the Matzo Ball, you were kind of approaching that relationship sort of apologetically. Like the main character is a secret Christmas lover and she has to be dragged into doing a Hanukkah event. But in your new book, in The Eight Heartbreaks of Hanukkah, it's like your characters have gotten over that. So your protagonist, Evelyn, can be very comfortable with her Judaism, but at the same time, she's producing a live TV event of A Christmas Carol. So, can you talk about that evolution in your approach to these interfaith relationships?
That is such a great question. First, let me also just say about Herschel and the Hanukkah Goblins is I have been asked if I will have any interest in writing a children's book, and I am terrified to do it because I feel like it will never be as good as that children's book. I feel like that is the gold standard of Jewish children's books. If I can't write anything to that level, I won't even try. So that's amazing. I love being the bookend to that. In terms of the journey, all my books, I kind of get the ideas from my real life. I was a nice Jewish girl who grew up in a family that was more machmir, more religious. We were not allowed Christmas at all in my house growing up. My mother often stormed into my public school with petitions that we weren't going to be singing songs that were Christian for the holiday concert. We weren't allowed tinsel or lights. And so when I was in this very sick part of my life, I was trying to survive, finding anything that could give me joy when I was in so much pain. And one day I'm out at Kohl's and I see this little silver bush with little blue balls. It had pre-lit lights, and I took it home and I immediately felt ashamed. But I was terrified of my mom seeing it. But I was you know what? I'm 38 years old. I pay my own bills. I've got a family. I'm going to put up some Jewish decor. And I started decorating for Hanukkah. So the matzo ball, it's not necessarily a journey the characters take. It's just me telling a different part of the story where I was. I knew I wanted to write a Hanukkah romance, and I knew I wanted it to feel authentic to the Jewish experience. I had started playing with some ideas. She's a seamstress on the Lower East Side. And one day I'm sitting at dinner with my husband and I'm like, this doesn't work. This is 2020. Jews are not sitting on the Lower East Side being seamstresses anymore. Jews are writers, they're rabbis, they're lawyers, they're teachers, whatever. And then I was like, writers. And I thought back to this article I had read 6 months earlier where this whole litany apparently of Hallmark movies are written by Jewish authors. Not really that surprising. And I realized, that's the hook. She's a Jewish girl. She's writing Christmas romances. She's a writer. But I had to raise the stakes. I had to make it, why can't she tell people? And it's very simple. Her dad is a big shoes rabbi in the community that knows if he's eating a tuna salad sandwich at Subway, they're all going to be talking about it. That's going to look at your cart in Trader Joe's. We know those communities. So she can't because she feels this pressure. I just thought it combined so much of my life at that stage. My mom, my love of Christmas, being a rabbinical school dropout. Whereas Eight Heartbreaks of Hanukkah, if I'm being quite honest, it was really a story about a married couple having to fall back in love with each other. And it was a point in my relationship with my husband where we were kind of arguing more than usual. We had lost my father. My sister had this horrible experience of a termination for medical reasons, abortion at 22 weeks that at the time was now made illegal. And all of this became the idea for the Eight Heartbreaks of Hanukkah. How can two people love each other but go through experiences that tear them apart, even though they're meant to be together? They're bashert, they're perfect for each other. But life has a way of giving us challenges that pull us apart. And so with the blessing of my sister, who has become an advocate for women and men and everyone in between who have experienced TFMR.
Spell out what those letters are for.
Sorry, it is termination for medical reasons, and it is an abortion. But the way my sister describes it is, for her, termination for medical reasons feels like a better descriptor of her experience, which was that this was a wanted child. They had been through IVF for years, and for some unknown reason, at 22 weeks, the baby just was not forming correctly anymore. And their beautiful baby boy was either going to be born with horrible deformities and maybe only minutes to hours to days to live, or she would die trying to have this baby. This was right after the laws had changed, and she began the mad race to make a decision before, I believe it was, I'm going to get this wrong, I'm sorry, Daniel, the 24-week mark, where she would no longer be able to have an abortion. This story is to honor that for my sister, to give voice to that for all the families that have experienced that, and also to write a story about finding your way back to your person.
All right. So that was a great description of an important angle on the Eight Heartbreaks of Hanukkah. But I want to go back to the comparison with the matzo ball, where in the matzo ball, they had this sort of fraught relationship between their Jewish identity and the Christian world around them. And then that seems to have sort of been resolved in Eight Heartbreaks. So I wondered if you could talk more about that change.
It's just my experience. People always think I'm a little bit of Rachel, but I'm also Jacob Greenberg, who was from a secular background, who started to sort of reconnect with his Judaism, looking for a value system. You know, I also only spent one summer at Camp Ramah, just like Jacob Greenberg. I went to public school. I was like Faye in Magical Meet Cute, who could only say Aleph, Bet, Vet, Gimel, Dalet, Hey. That was as much Hebrew as I had on the day I decided to leave for Israel. Again, they're both me. Every character in my book is me. So and that's most authors. I think that's how we get into their heads. Even the bad guys are us. So the relationship with the other world, Evelyn, I am writing the character as I see her, and I see someone who's just focused on work and getting through her day, and she puts her passions in through social justice, through running a nonprofit, through the television production stuff. So she just has a different Jewish experience.
Interesting. So what I thought was sort of an overarching trend is actually just up to the individual personalities of the characters.
That's exactly it. God, I go on and on, but that is exactly it. It's hard for people to sometimes realize that the characters are really real when you're an author. Like, they are real people. They have full personalities. Rachel is a rabbi's daughter, conservadox. She would have sat there at meals on Shabbat lunch and Kiddushin and heard the halakhic arguments, and she would speak that language. And Evelyn Schwartz in the Eight Heartbreaks of Hanukkah, her number one obsession, love, is work. And it's very hard to make time for God and spirituality when you're not taking care of your health, when you are fighting with your husband, when you're worried about your job, when you have chronic migraines. So she's just a real person, just trying to get through her life with her own passions and interests. And that's exactly it. They just have their own personalities, and that is the trajectory.
And it's interesting how much diversity of Jewish representation you're doing just on your own.
Yeah, and I love it. It's such an honor and it's such a privilege. I feel like the Jewish romance space is able to do that sort of work that a lot of other genres aren't able to do right now.
You sort of dabbled with fantasy in Magical Meet Cute, but Eight Heartbreaks has actual supernatural action with the heartbreak ghosts who come to visit Evelyn.
Yeah.
So can you talk about that? What was it like switching gears in that way to do actual supernatural stuff?
From an author perspective, I didn't think of it as switching supernatural gears. I thought what made the ghost so beautifully heart-wrenching in this book was that it gave us the ability to see Evelyn and David's history together. And that in romance is really, really important. You see how they fall in love. You see what broke them apart. Also, true story, Heidi, my mom uses A Christmas Carol, the family that my mother ripped down my Christmas paper tree when I was 5 years old. It's in the opening scene of the matzo ball. True story. My mother uses A Christmas Carol with patients in therapy. And she was the one who's like, what it really means. It's not really about changing negative patterns. It's really about seeing an experience from someone else's lens. That was my aha moment. And I just knew for romance readers, especially, that trajectory would be very, very powerful.
Have you heard whether non-Jewish romance readers also enjoy these books?
Yes. I get lots of emails from people who are not of the Jewish faith, who are just so grateful to have our amazing stories, to learn more about the Jewish community. And believe it or not, a lot of people love us and they want to support us and they are happy to learn more about the Jewish world. You know, I'm very aware that there are many communities reading my books where they might have never met a Jewish person. And how beautiful that they can pick up Matzo Ball or Mr. Perfect on paper or the Eight Heartbreaks of Hanukkah and see themselves in this very human story.
Now, are there other non-Jewish subgenres within romance that you particularly enjoy?
Within Jewish romance?
Now, within non-Jewish romance.
Oh, within
yeah, like is there,
non-Jewish romance.
I don't know, Irish romance or some other?
Yes! Oh my Lord!
Oh yeah, there is?
Okay, so romance has a lot of rules. The big one in romance is the through line must be pretty much focused on the main couple getting together, overcoming whatever is keeping them apart, and end with a happy ending. But then within that, romance readers love their tropes. So for example, Matzo Ball would be enemies to lovers. Eight Heartbreaks of Hanukkah, second chance. So this is a couple that should be together. They broke up and now they've been forced proximity, another trope, and they must work it out for the happy ending. Grumpy sunshine, right? Could be Mr. Perfect on paper. Dara's a little grumpy. Chris is like steadfast. I mean, his name is Christopher Steadfast. Come on. And even that's okay to do in romance. You know, one bed. Oh my God, we're in a hotel and there's only one bed. That is a beloved trope in romance. And yes, there are all sorts of subgenres. For example, if you want a fantasy that's on like an Irish island or a Scottish island, that's a subgenre within it. If you want paranormal romance like wolves and vampires too, that's a subgenre. Almost anything you can envision that women creatively desire or want to see or want to feel, you can find in romance. And that's what makes it such an incredible genre. And that's why it is the most popular genre in all of publishing. It sells more books and keeps publishing alive. Women readers reading romance keep publishing alive. So it's very interesting, though, that you'll never see New York Times writing up like a Debbie May Cumber or even Nora Roberts, even though they have sold millions of books, right? Because of misogyny. But romance is the number one genre in all of publishing.
I did not realize that. That's amazing.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
So try it because you can find your niche, whatever you're into. What are you into, Heidi?
What am I into? Probably like a sci-fi or fantasy type of element.
There are a lot of those. Whatever. Like we have everything. And if you go to romance bookstores, which are now a thing because romance is so popular, romance only bookstores, you will find that the sections are labeled like that. It's like Scottish romances, wolf romances, golem romances, disabled romances, over 40 romances, divorcee romances, not done all that often, but now you have one in the Eight Heartbreaks of Hanukkah, holiday romances. And not just Hanukkah, you can find Lunar New Year and Ramadan and I mean everything. Yeah, it's amazing. It's such a beautiful expression of the joy of diversity.
Now, in a terrific interview on the Jewish Book Council's website, you said that multiple readers have told you that your books saved their lives. So please tell me more about that.
I think we underestimate how much Jews need Jewish joy right now. Many, many people have written to me to say that my book showed up at a time when they felt like giving up. That is so sad. First off, no one should give up. But secondly, I hope more people come around to really talking about the heart of Jewish joy and the emotion of giving people reasons to feel confident and proud in being Jewish. That is all I am doing. I am helping people become confident in their own Jewish identity. And that is something that is really, really, really needed right now. That's all I can say without sharing like intimacies or stories is that There's a lot of people who have been disenfranchised or forgotten or not seen by the Jewish world and Jewish life. And one of the ways to bring those people back into engagement and letting them know they're not alone is to give them an experience that tells them they are okay. And that's what my books do.
Thank you. What other Jewish romance novels or books of Jewish joy would you like to recommend to our listeners, besides your own, of course?
So books I have absolutely loved this year. Never Planned on You by Lindsay Hammeroff. That is a Jewish romance with an absolute beautiful homage to Shabbat and challah and Jewish food. Fabulous, fabulous, well-written book. Battle of the Bookstores by Ali Brady. I loved Sisters of Fortune by Esther, I'm going to pronounce her name wrong, Chechebar, Chechebar. Fabulous. I know it's been compared to a Jewish Pride and Prejudice, but I actually think of it more like a Fiddler on the Roof, but with sisters in America who are Sephardi. I also really loved Soon by You by Dahlia Adler, coming in 2026. This is her first foray into adult romance, and it was beautifully Jewish and subversive, and it flipped tropes on its head. And then obviously Sarah Goodman Confino. She is not technically a romance author, but her latest book, Good Grief, is just a wonderful, beautiful story about re-envisioning your life after loss. So that should get you all started. And then obviously all my books.
Well, that's a given that people should start with your books. But thank you. That's an excellent reading list. You have a thriving fan club / book discussion group on Facebook called Jewish Women Talk About Romance Books. Can you tell us about that?
This just started as a Jewish Facebook group because I know there's a lot of Jewish romance readers out there, and we're usually not represented online in Jewish book communities. So I asked a bunch of Jewish romance authors, do you want to start this Facebook group with me? And God bless these beautiful women. They said yes. And we started Jewish Women Talk About Romance. And we're amazed. We have an influx of members right away, 1,000 people, 1,500. It was great. And it's such a vibrant group. It's so dynamic. My favorite compliment to hear is it is the nicest spot on the internet. And I think it is because from the leadership down, we're very focused on kindness and being good to each other and loving each other. And then October 7th happened, and suddenly we got another influx of members who said, we are no longer feeling safe in our book clubs. We are no longer feeling safe as Jews in these reading spaces. We can't be fully ourselves. Jean, will you start a book club? At the same time, I talked earlier about being on so many Zoom calls with crying authors. We were seeing a lot of backlash in the publishing community. Authors stopped getting support. Bookstores stopped carrying us. Bookstores were afraid to hold events with us because they were afraid of getting involved in something bigger, cancel culture. And so a lot of Jewish authors were suddenly kind of left to their own devices. I am one of these people who just has like a gut reaction to injustice and pain and want to protect people. Maybe because I don't have children. I sublimate with this mama bear instinct I seem to have. But I was like, okay, when the Jewish world asked me for something, I'm going to do the Jewish Joy Book Club, and I'm going to do author takeovers so we can add more people. And then I realized that this is a lot of work, Heidi, as you know, and we need a bit of a staff to host these things, to send out newsletters, to get people on the schedule, to send out emails, to communicate, to make sure everything's functioning. And I was like, we need money. And I was like, we need to do a box. So I researched and I was like, let's do a subscription box. We're going to support Jewish authors. We're going to be able to go to the publisher and say, we're buying this many hundreds of books. And on top of it, we're going to put Jewish small businesses in there. All the artisans who are not being invited to cons, not being accepted at cons, who don't have anywhere to show their locket earrings. It became this mission. I mean, I remember when I sat down to do this, I had a sum of money I was investing from my own book money that I had made. I said to myself, myself, if it's only 12 people who sign up for these boxes, it will be enough. I will do it for 12, like Avraham, because we have to do something more than just fighting anti-Semitism, which is important, but we have to do something on the other side of the coin, which is actually supporting the Jewish creative economy. So I was like, let's do these boxes. And Baruch Hashem, our first beta launch sold out 3 times, 4 times, 5 times than that number 12. And we've been growing every month since then. So we've been able to build, we've been able to hire staff. I still don't pay myself a salary for everyone sitting around thinking I'm like rolling in cash. I am not. All of this, though, is because of my deep belief that we are onto something that is so much bigger than me, so much bigger than my books, which is this sort of access point, this idea of creating engagement through Jewish joy in this new accessible model. Because as we've begun saying, Jewish joy is for all Jews. They are trying to silence us and erase us. They're trying to take away our stories. And that would be a shanda. Jewish creativity has changed civilization in every area that it has touched. And that brings us to Jewish JoyCon, coming March 13th to 15th, Fort Lauderdale, Florida, which will be a 3-day con celebrating the best in Jewish pop culture, storytelling, and creativity. Or as I like to say, imagine Comic-Con smashed together with the best of Jewish summer camp. And that's what Jewish JoyCon is going to be. But with celebrities and artists and really cool immersive workshops and 6 to 7 breakout rooms going at once. And you're not going to be able to do everything. And that's the point. It's going to be unbelievably fun, all ages, all backgrounds, because Jewish joy is for all Jews.
I love this. So I love hearing about the evolution of this from a Facebook group to a book discussion club to this subscription box of Jewish materials to a con. It's just incredible how it grows and grows, and all centered around Jewish joy. So I want to talk about joy itself. So how do you define Jewish joy?
So for me, it's very, very simple. Jewish joy is whatever connects you to your Judaism. So for some people, that's going to be social justice work. For some people, that's going to be making beautiful Hanukkah wreaths or knitting. For some people, that's going to be learning how to cook Jewish foods. For some people, that's going to be text study. Wherever you are in your Judaism, it's all good. It's like Torah. It's all good. The old world legacy models of Jewish life equated engagement with attendance and philanthropic donations, right? It was, how often did you go to shul? Do you keep kosher? Do you give to this group or that group? This shows whether you're an engaged Jew. I'm here to say, I don't think the model holds true anymore. I think there are lots of ways to be an engaged Jew, and that there are a lot of people right now looking for ways to be more engaged in their Judaism. What Jewish joy does is we kind of take I hate to say it, but a tech model where we are primarily remote with 1 to 2 huge in-person meetups a year. And so we are providing these access points to your Judaism through a robust virtual community, book clubs, boxes, and cons. But it is a choose your own adventure at Jewish Joy. You can be a Jew witch, you can be a rabbi, you can be modern Orthodox, you can be Chabad. Our company makeup reflects our community, which is across the fields, ages, LGBTQIA+, disabled, older, younger, college, we have it all, Sephardi, Ashkenazi, and our community has it all. And that is the power of Jewish joy. So connect in whatever way you can. Read a Jewish novel, do a Jewish podcast, light Shabbos candles, even if you don't know the prayers. You will know it's your mitzvah when it sparks the fire inside of you.
Is there something especially Jewish about joy?
Oh my gosh. So this is what's so crazy. Yes, the word joy is mentioned in the Torah over 440 times. Simcha and sason, like the 2 words. We are commanded to be joyful multiple times a year. In fact, joy often supersedes periods of mourning. That is how valuable joy is in Judaism. Rabbi Nachman of Breslov was famous for his focus on joy. Jews are so joyful. When you scroll through videos on Instagram and you see the way Jews will just like break out into ruach, into song and start dancing. Like, who doesn't love a good circle dance more than a Jew? Maybe Albanians. My husband's Albanian. They also love circle dancing, by the way. The wedding was amazing.
Do you have to be Jewish to engage with Jewish joy?
Absolutely not. We have a lot of members actually who are not Jewish, but they would consider themselves Jewish adjacent. And at my own events, I have met women who did not convert, but are raising their children Jewish because they married a Jewish man. We have lots of people who have grown up in the Jewish community. They feel like it's coming home for them. People who are just Jewish curious or are in the process of converting or have converted. And we have people who are Christians or not Jewish. They see our faith as integral to their faith. All of this is welcome. We are not checking halakhic statuses at the door. We just say, come with love and allyship and support, and everyone is welcome.
So how can listeners sign up to participate in the con?
You can head over to thejewishjoycon.com and you will find all the information there, including for tickets, vending, exhibiting, presenting. And again, we want the entire representation of Jewish life present. Please be bold. Please be creative. Please put yourself out there. If you don't tell us about you, we won't know about you. We'll do our best to make your dreams happen.
Is this going to be an annual event?
God willing. Possibly, if there's enough interest, believe it or not, people have even talked about franchising. But, right now I'm good at one con and we will reevaluate after. But yes, I really think this is needed. I think this is just the beginning. All of this feels bigger than me as an author. It feels like, I'm going to cry, a lot of things led me here. So my hope is that people find meaning and that everyone who needs hope and joy and love finds it through something we can provide. Okay, I'm going to stop crying now.
No, it's beautiful. I can see why you're choking up.
I'm so honored. I can't believe I'm here. I never saw myself launching a con or being an entrepreneur, but I'm very grateful for the opportunity, and I'm grateful for everyone, including you, Heidi, who has supported me thus far and supported Jewish Joy.
I am thrilled to do it. In fact, I have been doing a series of author interviews before I even heard of Jewish Joy Con called the Jewish Joy series. It's on the website Multicultural Kid Blogs, which kind of aggregates different blogs that deal with diversity for children's education and books. And
yeah, I will totally go check it out. That's so cool.
Yeah, so if you go to multiculturalkidblogs.com and search for Heidi Rabinowitz, you will find all of the different interviews that I've done with a variety of diverse Jewish authors about what brings them Jewish joy and about their writing. So
that's so cool.
So we're both in the Jewish joy business, but you've taken it beyond.
Yeah. I think it's amazing, but it's crazy. But the Kabbalists say if you want to know your soul's calling, find the thing that absolutely gets you up in the morning. You're like incredibly passionate about it, but that thing also scares the heck out of you. That's your calling.
So on an individual level, when we're not at the con and we're not participating in the book club and so on, how can we bring more Jewish joy into our daily lives?
I love this question. So I would say, it starts with just simple moments. A lot of Judaism, underneath all the rules and halakha, is really just about taking a moment to sort of appreciate the wonder you are living in. Getting up, you walk your dog, you're getting your kids ready, whatever it is. Take a moment to just connect to your gratitude for that and think about how that moment allows you to feel joyful, allows you to connect with a bigger thing on the universe. You're not just walking your dog, you're getting to walk your dog and you're getting to watch your little baby husky sniff the rose petals or stop and admire something that they shouldn't be eating, but you're getting that beautiful moment. And I think in terms of Jewish life, start to think about Jewishness in bigger, different ways. Think about Jewishness like reading a Jewish book, listening to a Jewish podcast, doing some Jewish craft or doing some Jewish art. And you don't have to go in person to do it. You can go online. These are all perfectly acceptable, amazing ways to engage with your Jewish joy. I would also say if you can't find the community you're looking for, build it yourself. But start with finding the things that put you on fire Jewishly.
It's Tikkun Olam time. So what action would you like to call listeners to take to help heal the world?
So I'm a big believer in 2% increments of better. It is how I got out of my chronic illness hole. It is how I learned how to write a book. Can I move this needle in 2% increments of better? Don't think you have to change the world. Start small. Pay for someone's lunch at the line who's standing behind you. Give $18 to a Jewish charity. Go knock on your elderly Jewish neighbor's door with a challah and some honey for Rosh Hashanah. Call your mother. Call your mother.
Yes, call your mother. I think there's a podcast named Call Your Mother.
Is it called that? I don't know. I would totally listen to a podcast, though, where people just call their Jewish mothers.
There's a podcast from Queller named Call Your Mother.
Call your mother. I love that. I need to go check that out. That's amazing. See, that's it. Connect to your Jewish joy. Listen to Call Your Mother.
What are you working on next in terms of writing or other projects?
I am currently on hiatus from writing until the con is finalized and off the ground. I am spending all my time right now building this amazing event and making sure the boxes are getting out to our subscribers and getting the company established so that come 2026, I can hopefully return to writing. I have some ideas. I've been percolating, but 5 books in 5 years is a lot. And right now my calling is to just get Jewish joy off the ground. But I promise, shall God allow it, I will return to the page. So there will be more rom-coms and maybe some not rom-coms in my future. So we'll see.
Okay. Where can listeners learn more about your work?
You can find me at jeanmeltzer.com. You can also check us out and what we're doing at jewish-joy.com. And you can also find me on all the Instagram and Facebook, Jean Meltzer author on Facebook.
Is there anything else that you want to talk about that I haven't thought to ask you?
Just thank you, Heidi, so much for having me. I really want to commend you. 20 years of doing this. That is wild. I mean, that is a commitment to your listeners. And as someone who does this work now myself, like, kol hakavod, like, good on you. Everybody, she works so much harder than you will ever know from these podcasts. She works so hard to bring this to you. So thank you for all you've done for 20 years. You are, I don't know what a Jewish saint is, but thank you for being someone who supports Jewish creatives with your own time and effort.
Thank you so much. That's beautiful. I appreciate your appreciation.
Really, if you want to do a 2% better, just thank Heidi, send a nice email, say you're a listener, right? That's a great thing you can do because a lot of times we do it in vacuums or we don't get feedback. Make someone smile. I'm a joy bringer and I love bringing joy and it makes me a really happy person in life. And I think you'll find if you spread joy, you will feel it in return tenfold.
Well, as a member of the Mutual Appreciation Society, I am going to also suggest that people should write to Jean Meltzer and tell her what amazing work she's doing because it's incredible. The ripples are just moving outward and outward that you are bringing joy to this world, and we need it so much. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you, Heidi, and thank you for having me here and letting me talk about all my books. Amazing that you read them, you know them, and also for letting me talk about Jewish joy.
Jean Meltzer, thank you so much for speaking with me, and happy Hanukkah.
Happy Hanukkah!
And I can't wait to see you at Jewish JoyCon.
I can't wait to see you either, Heidi, and hopefully many, many of your listeners will be there as well. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And again, have the best, safest, most joyfully Jewish Hanukkah and holiday season ever.
Hi, this is Betsy Bird. I'm the author of Pop Goes the Nursery Rhyme, as well as many other books for children. I'm the Collection Development Manager of Evanston Public Library, as well as the former Youth Material Specialist of New York Public Library. And I've written many article. I have a blog on School Library Journal called A Fuse No. 8 Production. And I do this podcast with Kate called Fuse 8 and Kate, where we look at different picture books and determine which ones should be classics.
And I'm her sister Kate, co-host of the podcast Fuse 8 and Kate.
We would like to dedicate this episode to our parents. From a very young age, they instilled in us a love of reading and an understanding of the importance in storytelling, as well as our continuing love of deep, deep sarcasm.
Thanks, Mom and Dad, for teaching us about independent bookstores, wordplay, and of course, dry humor.
Say hi to Heidi at 561-206-2473 or bookoflifepodcast@gmail.com. Subscribe to my newsletter on Substack to join me in growing Jewish joy and shrinking anti-Semitic hate. Get show notes, transcripts, Jewish Kidlit news, and occasional calls to action right in your inbox. Sign up for the newsletter at bookoflifepodcast.substack.com. You can also find the Book of Life on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Want to read the books featured on the show? Buy them through bookshop.org/shop/bookoflife to support the podcast and independent bookstores at the same time. You can also help us out by becoming a monthly supporter through Patreon or making a one-time donation to our home library, the Feldman Children's Library at Congregation B'nai Israel of Boca Raton, Florida. You'll find links for all of that and more at bookoflifepodcast.com. Additional support comes from the Association of Jewish Libraries, the leading authority on Judaic librarianship, which also sponsors our sister podcast, Nice Jewish Books, a show about Jewish fiction for adults. Learn more about AJL at jewishlibraries.org. Our background music is provided by the Freilach Makers Klezmer String Band. Thanks for listening, and happy reading.
Louise isn't juggling balls or flames. She's juggling life, the emotional weight of being a daughter, a mother, a wife, and someone facing a terminal diagnosis. In her latest novel, Unfinished Acts of Wild Creation, author Sarah Yam introduces us to a woman navigating the tangled mess of grief, love, honesty, and humor. Join us for a deeply moving and surprisingly funny conversation about Louise, her snarky daughter, her desperate to hold it all together husband, and the beauty found in unfinished things. We also share some personal stories along the way. Listen now at jewishlibraries.org/nicejewishbooks or your favorite podcast platform.